Hey guys, good morning everybody. Thanks for joining us. We will wait a few more seconds to allow for the latecomers to join, and we're going to start on the dot at 10:30, which is to be in a few seconds anyway. Well, the first minute will be introduction, so I don't think they're going to lose much. So again, thanks for joining us today for this debate about SIEM, XDR, SOAR, EDR, and so on and so forth. This event is the first of a new series that I'd like to call McAfee Talks, where we will try to limit the slides to a minimum and privilege instead demos and discussions about the topic that we're going to present. Um, just because, the introduction is always something we need to do. This is me. It's kind of always odd to introduce myself, but that's the way it is at the moment. First of all, I apologize for my voice. I have a throat ache, but the good news is I'm not going to talk much. I'm going to pass the ball very quickly to our guest today. I'm an information security consultant, a part of the Center of Excellence team in Ingram Micro. I spent, I don't know, close to 20 years in information security. I worked for multiple vendors, including McAfee a few years ago, and I experienced in channel sales and customer enablement. Because you need to add something personal nowadays. During my spare time, as you can see in the back, I like to play guitar and record music sometimes when I have the time. Let's go to the guest today, Filippo Sizia. Hopefully, I spelled the surname correctly. He's another Italian like me. He has a bachelor degree in electronic engineering. I cover different IT roles in Italy: network engineer, system engineer, and also software developer. He started with McAfee a few years ago as a pre-sales engineer, and nowadays he's McAfee Enterprise Solution Architect for SecOps in EMEA. He
Good
also
morning.
the McAfee CTO ambassador 3 times. Maybe you want to explain a little bit what it is in a second. And during his free time, he enjoys coding and exploring all the new threats as well as penetration testing techniques. Good morning, Filippo.
Good morning, Paolo, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Really excited to run this topic today. Filippo Sizia, out of the Cork office, I'm a headquarter of McAfee Enterprise, so in Ireland, but sometimes you can find me also in Italy, overall with the new formula, working from home. I started to work as an inside pre-sales engineer at McAfee back to the 2014, and today, yes, I'm covering the EMEA market, but for the enterprise region, and as a solution architect for security operations. And yes, Paolo, like you said, I've been part of some interesting programs around the CTO Innovation Office at McAfee for 3 years, where I've been part of some, let's say, exotic projects overall around adoption of machine learning for threat detection, but also open architectures around the open data exchange layer and so on.
Thanks, Filippo. Let's go to the agenda. After my very brief introduction, which is almost over, obviously I will leave the floor to the expert, Filippo. We will take us through a journey that will cover the following: how the security operation is evolving, why we need EDR, and why it's not the same as having an endpoint protection software installed, the evolution of SIEM and how it is similar, but also different from EDR and XDR. What SOAR is, very good, very brief introduction about this technology, where it comes from. And finally, given the time, we will also look at XDR and who is it for and what it's not for. Throughout the talk, feel free to use the Q&A box to submit your questions. We will try to review them as many as we can during the discussion, time allowing, and also giving another shot at the final Q&A. So I hope you stay with us. So let's start. I posted a few polls during the build up to today's webinar, and I would like to review 2 of them, which were kind of a bit confusing. Just to make sure that we clarify, and maybe I leave Filippo to quickly comment because I'm sure this is going to be covered in today's content. So the first one was, which one is not a use case for XDR? This is a common misunderstanding, and obviously, as you can see here, one of them is to be incorrect, and the incorrect one is log collection. And depending you're talking to, and sometimes there is this misunderstanding about SIEM versus XDR and what it does and what it does not. And log collection is still the realm of SIEM and not of XDR for several reasons, including compliance and so on and so forth. So we're going to clarify this later in the talk, but that's I wanted to make sure that I touch base on these two. The second one is what is a technology that records activities and events and correlates information to provide context and runs automated responses? Obviously, again, one of these is correct and the other is wrong. And again, this is a common hurdle to understand. Sometimes XDR is obviously what we're looking for, or EDR sometimes, but definitely not SOAR. SOAR, it does something different. It doesn't really do what is there, but SOAR is a kind of a new technology, and it's confusing as well. But just to clarify this, we're going to cover this in the talk, and hopefully you're going to go away with some better understanding, which brings me to the last slide of my introduction. For the ones who know me, I always like to give my webinar a theme. And today for me is about learning something you did not know today. So if I manage to do this with most of you, I will consider this a success. So with this, happy learning, and I leave the floor to Filippo.
Thanks, Paolo. Yes, we will try to learn something. So let me share my screen here. Okay. I guess you can see it now. And
I can see the desktop, I think.
Perfect. And again, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. So now, why we are here? Well, as a security operator, of course, we have a mission, and our mission is always to keep organizations, protected. And in terms of technology innovation within a security vendor, like maybe my organization, McAfee Enterprise, is always to bring innovation. In this specific case, for security operations, of course, the main focus is always around, reducing the mean time to detect, and in general, the mean time to respond. I'll bring during this conversation some real use case example that I went through in the last years, working overall around Europe, because tasks from the organization side are always collect events, parse them, and we always hope to get logged relevant data. No, you don't want to log actually everything. You want to discover evidence of missing attacks and investigate. Of course, security vendors need to support you on that, providing tools that can help you out to reduce the mean time to detect and the mean time to respond. I can tell you that last year I've been invited in a roundtable meeting with a customer after they got breached. Basically, a ransomware destroyed a portion of the environment in different regions. Now, the main conversation was around the adoption of an endpoint detection and response solution, so in EDR. And they were exploring the market, so they didn't call me just to say, Filippo, we want to buy McAfee EDR. They just wanted to know more. And actually, after an investigation, they discovered that the ransomware was not only the only problem. For the 6 months before the incident, someone was, discovering the environment and exfiltrating data. Okay. The problem for the organization that for the 6 months previous to the incident, they were blind. They didn't see anything at all, and that's why bringing on the conversation endpoint detection and response tools was basically the main focus for them. It was kind of interesting for me because when you read about statistics, and you see that 3 months might be the average to discover that someone is inside your environment doing lateral movement and maybe exfiltrating data. even 6 months for me that day was a big number, but that's the reality. Okay. But what we have done, of course, in the years, I still remember when I started to work as a system engineer, one of my many tasks was really to take care about logs on Linux servers, and really doing manually some tasks that today a SIEM solution can do for you in few seconds. Okay. And you see here how, the evolution on security operations came through, like starting from collection, that became after, with the first adoptions for customers that could buy one, the first adoption of security event management, so SIEM, and the first engines of correlations, starting from risk-based correlation and rule-based correlation. Okay, so you see something happening like a login, a recurrence login for a couple of times failing, and in our specific window time, I start to declare, okay, we might have probably a brute force attack. And in the whole evolution, we came through orchestration. Finally, we were not anymore forced to build, Perl or even Python script to manage your security operations, but we started to see in the market tools like the MISO, Phantom, Swim Lane, DF Labs, actually DF Labs made in Italy. So also I saw many applications of Node-RED, so open source tools as well. And today we are in a situation where analytics are actually massive. It's interesting, for example, to see like on the McAfee XDR tool, you have automatic investigations that actually use expert machines, so a portion of what we call mainly artificial intelligence, but specifically for this case, expert machines that can uncover anomalies inside your environment. For example, a new process that the system never seen in your environment that now is opening a connection in an IP address that is new. We never seen a connection to this specific address. The problem, what is it? So the problem is that even though we were evolving security defense technologies, attackers were doing the same. They were evolving their attack flows. And I built here, design a simple one. Okay, let's say it's interesting. It's really educative because it can explain us and it can highlight where security vendors can have specific challenges, and not only security vendors, but overall stock, where you need to discover where even a Microsoft native tool can be used for malicious activities, like what might be, for example, the well-known PowerShell. You cannot just block PowerShell everywhere. So I'll go really quick. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just imagine, for example, to introduce in your environment a new executable, and the name is WinSCP. We all know WinSCP, but in this case, we are just leveraging the name of a well-known tool. Okay, this is a custom malicious software. It does, first of all, it checks for the original WinSCP to understand if the original WinSCP is installed. There can be something that indicates the fact that someone might want probably discover if any kind of password has been recorded on the Windows registry, because WinSCP does one thing that might be sometimes really dangerous. It allows you to store credentials on the Windows registry in order to have easy access to your servers without any time retype username and password. But attackers, of course, can dump your Windows registry and get those passwords. So in this case, the sample was looking for the original WinSCP. And as you see here, if WinSCP is not installed, the sample is just dropping a destructive malware. Okay, so here is where endpoint protection platforms start to trigger alerts. Of course, signature detection and other specific engines, they can see statically, if a file is malicious or not. The APP might, give you an alert here, but the problem is how you can uncover the fact that someone intentionally put a WinSCP.exe inside your environment and triggered the execution. Okay. Again, the next stage, let's say the WinSCP is installed. In the next stage, the sample we try to understand is, how many times the end user log on, and that can be used in order to bypass sandbox detection. Again, negative case, if below 3, we just destroy the environment and we drop a sample. And here we hope the EPP solution might be able to protect the environment. But as you see, if even in this case, the number of logon of the end user is greater than 3, the sample will trigger the next stage. So we'll move inside the temp folder, changing name, changing hash, and we start again, and we move to the next stage where we wait, in this case, for 2 seconds. But imagine we could leave it waiting for 1 hour, 2 hours, and so on, and start to get even more complicated for our security operator discover that something bad is happening in the environment, in the endpoint in this case. It will download PSEC and will unzip it on the temp folder. Will download 7-zip and will unzip it on the temp folder. It will dump the password from the registry. It will store it in a file. It will package the file using 7-zip behind a password and will laterally move. Okay, now we are not going to investigate on this, but my question is, how long does it take you to discover that the suspicious 7-zip in your environment? So are you aware about a 7-zip that your colleague John downloaded last Friday in the afternoon? And it probably is not him doing it, but it's another suspicious process that did it for him under his username. That's an example that I use to highlight my customers about specific roles that technologies have. Okay, because even Gartner defining specific technologies didn't do it just for fun or for marketing purpose. It did it in order to specify specific roles on specific frameworks as well. So EPP, what EPP is, Endpoint Protection Platform, okay? And it's completely different from EDR, Endpoint Detection and Response. And with Paolo, we really face every day the same situation where customers are confused still between EPP and EDR, and not because customers are not understanding. It's because we go through marketing message where security vendors are putting with exotic names like next generation XDR and so on, and you might discover that probably they don't have a component of EPP, or might have a poor component of EPP, not able to detect even the most common ransomware WannaCry. Okay, so my suggestion for you during security conversations is always to specify what we are talking about. Are we talking about EPP? Are we talking about EDR? Is your solution combining both of them? And if you're proposing me a unique solution, how good is the EPP part and how good is your EDR part? Okay, so this is something that we will touch in the next slides with some examples.
Filippo?
Yes, Paolo, yes.
Before we go further, I kind of find it interesting the way that if you have an EPP solution, and if you go back to the first flowchart where you see the WinSCP installed, you see here the fact that sometimes the EPP might report just the destructive malware or whatever the payload for the null parts of the things, but you still, the customer might still be missing the context of what actually is trying to be happening in the organization. You just say, oh, the endpoint found and blocked a piece of malware. But in reality here, what's trying to happen is the WinCP is trying to do other things that with an endpoint protection alone, you won't be able to find. And I find this is kind of a common scenario in today's multi-staged threats. Now you just detect what you see, but you're missing the point of what actually is happening. Sorry, I thought that was something to clarify.
No,
I like
perfect. Yes, and I guess the next step from the customer side will be, okay, perfect, Paolo, tell me, I have SIEM, can I do that?
Obviously.
So we will touch that as well. So XDR is another really hot topic at the moment, and so what XDR is, we will go through the slides, but again, by definition, extended detection and response. Okay, really similar to EDR, but this time, you know, endpoint is crucial. So while EPP and EDR are focused on the endpoint and they're living on the endpoint, okay, XDR is an extension of EDR concept. Okay, so detection and response via other technologies, not only the endpoint, maybe SIEM solutions, might be network IPS, might be web gateways, and so on. SIEM, we all know SIEM, but we will touch it as well, security information and event management. So as you see, even by definition, cannot be the same of an XDR, an EDR. And SOAR, security orchestration, automation, and response. Okay, so there is a difference here between EPP, EDR, XDR, and SIEM with SOAR. So while EPP, EDR, XDR, and SIEM are technology solutions, okay, SOAR is not a technology solution, but a family of technology solutions. Okay, so SOAR doesn't identify the specific solution, but a category, and we will see that. Okay, so even here, you know, customers are confusing. Okay, SOAR is the orchestration tool. Well, the orchestration tool is a SOAR technology, but that doesn't mean that every SOAR solution must be an orchestration tool. And we will see that. We will check what, you know, Gartner is saying and so on. In terms of differences between EPP and EDR, I believe the most important concept that we should consider is the difference between detect and protect. Here I have, you know, the NIST cybersecurity framework, five pillars. Okay, I really like when on the articles they call it the 5 functions. It's really cool. The first version of this framework came in the 2014, and it's still actually valid. Now we have the version 1.1, and the 2014 was the version 1.0, of course. The framework is all about, you know, risk management principles and cybersecurity best practices. Okay. Now, I like the framework because of the highlight of detect and protect, and this is really important. Okay. In terms of architecture, I'll bring it here, the example from McAfee, but you can apply the same architecture to many other security vendors. Okay, if you start to dig in when they offer you an EDR solution or a next generation anti-malware EDR, you might want to uncover at the end of the day, the architecture will include a portion of EPP, so endpoint protection platform, and a portion of EDR. Now, McAfee, as you see here, the two modules are split on top of the same agent. Okay, so when you have conversations about the number of agents, actually, it's not really relevant because at the end of the day, you will have one agent talking with one console. Okay, but on top of the agent, there will be two modules with two completely different roles. One, so the EPP role will be to protect. Okay. The EDR component will be to detect and respond. So you can split it as well, the EDR module, into pieces. One component of detection and one component for response. Okay. Now, in terms of course of EPP, I'm not going to spend too much time, but now we don't talk anymore about antivirus. We talk about anti-malware or next generation anti-malware if you want to stay in the market as a leader. So your anti-malware, we will have, of course, the asset scan, the asset protection, the threat prevention. But if you, for example, take in consideration the McAfee one that has up to 3 machine learning engines. So one locally on the machine, 2 in the cloud. So you can imagine how difficult it might be now, how difficult it is now for an attacker to build a sample that can bypass an EPP module like this one. Okay, there are so many security layers, including support from the cloud. And this is the protection part. In terms of detection part, so the EDR module is responsible for collecting telemetry. Telemetry that might be, for example, what you do with your browser, what you do with your file system, so creating, modifying a file, deleting a file, creating a Windows registry, modifying a Windows registry, opening a network connection, and so on. There are so many collectors that can store telemetry that can help you out to uncover, suspicious situations on the endpoint. And again, I'll repeat, on the endpoint. Don't forget, those 2 modules are working on top of an endpoint, so you will never have an EDR solution for a web proxy, for example. That's where we start to talk about an XDR solution. Of course, EDR has support from analytics engines, and I can show you also something from the dashboard. But there will be guided investigation. There will be the possibility to create custom collectors, custom reactions, because even reactions are important. If you detect something, you might want to take an action. You want to have your hands directly on the endpoint via your management tool, like, for example, kill a process, or shut down the endpoint, or log off the end user, modify a Windows registry, and so on. Okay, so remember, split the EDR in 2 pieces, one for detection and one for response. In terms
Filippo,
of, yes,
I wanted to point out something that MITRE did some time ago about EDR solutions. I think, because I know McAfee, but generally speaking, a good way of seeing whether an EDR solution is good or bad is the amount of telemetry versus the amount of analytics it provides. Because I remember what the biggest problems for SOC or generally people that work in IT is the amount of events, logs, whatever you want to call it, alerts that are given to a team to investigate. So the fact that MITRE says low telemetry, high analytics is good. High telemetry, low analytics, not so good, because you end up in the same problem. You're given even more alerts to look at. So I think it's important the fact that I think you call it actions, and that's what actions are really the analytics, no, for your EDR, right?
Yes, it depends. It depends. So we basically, after we will see even in the SOAR architecture how analytics can be considered as a standalone layer. But what you said is really important also to introduce the fact that why EDR and SIEM don't do the same job, and they are actually living at the same level, is the fact that the old telemetry that you are getting here cannot just be sent to a SIEM and you wait for something. Okay, the telemetry will be just too much. And that's also something really interesting that ESG brought to the table with the SOAR architecture, where analytics is a standalone layer. Now, how do we see those 2 modules living in a attack life cycle? I put it here. Okay, we still have a management console, but as you see, they have specific roles also on an attack life cycle. So when you drop the malicious sample that we saw in the previous example, we are exactly here. Okay, so our anti-malware, next generation anti-malware, or let's call it as we want, will stop the execution of this file even before, when the file is stored on the endpoint. It will be deleted. Now, what we could do before and what we will be able to do after is basically on top of an EDR solution, because actually the EDR solution is living on top of 2 specific processes. One is incident response. One is threat hunting. Okay. Now, of course, threat hunting requires some skills, and that's where XDR can help you out as well. But as you see, we try to be more proactive. So if we are aware, for example, about a specific hash as an indicator of an APT campaign, you might want to use your EDR tool to hunt for this specific file. Okay, and I'm saying file, not threat, because sometimes even a Word file can be an indicator of compromise. And maybe an advanced APT group that decide to attack a specific portfolio of organization. And in my first stage, I'm just dropping on their environment a TXT file that works as a flag. Okay, because the next stage of the campaign will be run a ransomware in every single endpoint that has this specific flag. You know, you never know. They have ideas. They are not so stupid, actually. They are really, really advanced. So now, if you are aware that this specific flag, this TXT file or Word file, whatever, is an indicator of compromise, you probably want to have your hands in your environment and run a real-time search in the whole environment and find out if the file is there. Okay, but of course, if something happens, you want to take an action as well after. So the EDR detection and response can help you out on that, in both parts, for detection and for response. Okay, so again, you want to take, you want to apply your corrections in the environment if something happens, or you want to uncover things that manage to bypass the APP solution as well. Okay, so now that it's clear the difference between EPP and EDR, and again, remember the fact that every security vendor can sell you one solution, but always remember to just clarify what the EPP capabilities are and what the EDR capabilities are as well. Okay, McAfee Enterprise at the moment can sell you one unique solution, but we always like to specify what EPP is, and we got it a name actually, okay, ENS, and what an EDR solution is, Envision EDR. Okay, after you can buy your commercial bundle, everything can be together and so on. Now, another concern, of course, from our customers is what the role of SIEM. Because, okay, customers are interested in knowing more about endpoint detection and response. And sometimes we really receive questions like, should I renew my SIEM? Because all my security operations were on top of my McAfee ESM, or maybe even, you know, Splunk, ArcSight, and so on, or all SIEM in this specific case are good. Well, with the customer, important is always, again, to clarify what the EDR role is, because SIEM, you will discover that you will still need SIEM in the future. Now, again, what SIEM is? Okay, again, security, information, and event management solution. And the definition here helps us a lot. So, you know, we are talking about events. We are talking about a central risk management tool for investigation, threat detection, and of course, you can do also some response, of course. And SIEM solutions, you know, what they do, they basically provide you a single location for storing and analyzing data. And the data, really important, is coming from many different log sources. Differently from EDR, where the data is coming only from the endpoint. On a SIEM, the data is coming from different log sources. And again, we are not talking about only IT objects, like what might be a network IPS or a web gateway. A SIEM can even collect events coming from a temperature and humidity sensor in a server farm, because you might want to correlate also other things over there. Might be my log also events coming from the fact that the door of the server farm is open or closed, that you might want to correlate as well with possible, you know, pen drive plugged in on a physical server in the server farm and so on. Also, never forget compliance is a strong driver for a SIEM solution. Okay, so it is many probably the big portion of customers that are applying a SIEM, you know, the first requirement is always on top of the checklist compliance. You need a SIEM for compliance. And
I guess, Filippo, here
yes.
it's important to understand why compliance cannot be done with XDR, for the simple fact that the data is not in raw format. So it is not valid for compliance. Where the SIEM can retain the original format, XDR cannot. Even if it's in essence the same data, it's not valid for compliance.
Exactly, exactly. And again, I want to come back always to the interesting, SOAR architecture where the analytics layer is split from the rest. So basically, SIEM can even, receive logs that are already digested by other analytics engines. And of course, on a SIEM solution, you have also the old templates already out of the box with the different compliance and so on. Yes, Paul, absolutely. Of course, historically, you see we had SIEM, SIEM. One was mainly, so the SIEM was mainly for the collection and aggregation of the security events, and the SIEM was mainly for the enrichment, normalization, correlation, and so on. So now, of course, in 2021, we have SIEM solutions in the market really mature. They can even apply analytics on top of that. And how it looks like, I got a screenshot here from them, McAfee one. But again, we remarked that what we said already. You see the all events that are aggregated here from different sources. We might have, device control events. We might have web gateway events, network IPS events, and again, maybe even the temperature of your server farm here. Okay, and features like correlation, for example, uncover a brute force attacks. Okay, so login failures in a window time. Historical, you can always come back in the time. So if you discover something suspicious or malicious today, you might want to check in the past if that threat was already present in your environment, in the past. And that's a big role for the SIEM, because as a primary log collector, you might find, interesting logs or events stored over there.
So Filippo, do SOC also use the SIEM for these things then? Can you just provide us a couple of use cases for the SIEM today in the SOC team?
Oh yes, absolutely. So let's say, let's come back to the example that we saw before in the attack chain, where we uncovered that someone opened a connection on service portal, on internal portal to download PSX and so on. Okay, so different activities that are not all stored on the SIEM, absolutely not. But what you want to have probably stored in the SIEM might be all the correlations with the same IP address where maybe the attacker exfiltrated the data. Okay, and SIEM is really good for that. And that's where also actually we are anticipating an evolution of EDR as an XDR technology, is where XDR is taking data from SIEM to enrich investigation, because SIEM has history. And an IP address, you can imagine how many events might be connected to an IP address. And that's where EDR might be blind, because EDR knows only things from the endpoint. But when the endpoint in this case works really well as a sensor, primary sensor, you want to extend querying the SIEM. Okay, I know something from this sensor. Can you tell me more about the IP address that have been involved in this specific incident? That's where we will still see SIEM in the market for a long time. And also, SIEM does also normalization, okay? And normalization and aggregation as well. No compression, really, aggregation. So try to understand how specific shape of data can be aggregated to optimize as well the space that you are going to take in your database. Another use case might be, for example, the correlation of an event coming from device control, where you plug a pen drive, and after a few seconds, maybe an exploit for memory violation after the execution of an executable on the pen drive. And SIEM can do that. It does that actually really well. Now, where SIEM can have some challenges, and that's where EDR can help you out, is the telemetry on single sensors. And I have here a typical example. Okay. Yesterday, after I ran the attack that I'd like to show you today, really quick, of course, after a few seconds, I went to the to the device search. And that's a place where basically the telemetry for one endpoint is stored in the cloud. Okay, so the endpoint here is client one. As you see, only pointing to the Windows registry keys in really few minutes, 253 Windows registry key operations were registered from the endpoint. Can you imagine to do that for 24 hours for every single endpoint that you have in your environment and send it over to the SIEM? That's where too much telemetry can really fail, of course, can fail. And so again, the component analytics here can help to digest the different things. I'll show you better in my lab. Now, it came to me even a few days ago, a situation where the customer, actually a SIEM customer using EDR, was asking me to talk about, SOAR and how SOAR could help them in specific situations, because lack of not only lack of skills, but even a lack of people in the team. Okay, so and technologies. Remember always, you need to find the right balance between processes, people, and tools if you want to have a mature stock. Now, even here, I guess marketing, push, SOAR solutions SOAR technologies are the solution for the next threat challenges. But again, let's start from the definition. So SOAR has been defined by Gartner, okay, and stands for security orchestration, automation, and response. Okay, so when you see someone telling you you need a SOAR, and that's my solution for you, and they offer you an orchestration tool, just remember, security orchestration automation is a portion of a SOAR category. Okay, so if you want to build a complete SOAR architecture, you might need even more technologies. Okay, it's not just buying an orchestration tool and connecting it to your EPP solution that you solve and you automate, because actually, an EPP solution can already send you an email or can already, apply automation like tagging an endpoint or changing the desktop firewall rules. So simple things can be made already, simple automation. But I try to put together an example of a SOAR architecture here, where threat intelligence platforms and security incident response platforms work together with an orchestration tool. Okay, a really simple example, but I have here a SIEM. Okay, in this case, a Splunk SIEM. The Splunk SIEM is receiving logs from a McAfee EDR tool. It's also receiving logs from a McAfee EPP solution, okay, ENS. You see the McAfee EPP solution can send telemetry to the McAfee labs that are aware about threat campaigns, okay? Probably you already heard about McAfee Insights, where we actually correlate and aggregate IOCs, part of APT campaigns and threat profiles. Now, why is important this component here is because we can enrich information inside the threat intelligence platform in this lab, MISP, okay? Malware intelligence sharing platform. Of course, a tip solution is obviously receiving threat feeds, but it can generate alerts in a incident response platform. In this case, the Hive a really interesting open source project that does not only ticketing, it can also orchestrate flows during incident response, and it can also extend some analysis capabilities with an engine they call Cortex. And it's not the same Cortex that we have here actually from Palo Alto. It's the orchestration tool in this lab. So as you see, the orchestration tool can open automatically investigation, okay, on the McAfee Envision EDR. Envision EDR can trigger specific operations on the orchestration tool that can open a case on the Hive. As you see, this can be considered as a SOAR architecture. Okay, so when you're focused on buying SOAR technology, remember always that SOAR contains 3 portions of product categories. Okay.
Filippo, sorry, before you move on, maybe
yes.
There is a question about the difference between an EDR and a SIEM in the chat.
Okay.
Maybe if you can provide some use cases of the two, or your experience from how customers are using it, to clarify.
SIEM and XDR.
SIEM and EDR.
Okay, perfect. So SIEM and EDR. Let me see if we have a slide that can help. Maybe something that we touched already. No, I don't have a slide, but I can jump in the lab and we can talk on top of that. But let me come back at least here. Now, the EDR has laser focus on the endpoint and gather an amount of telemetry that cannot be sent directly to a SIEM without, leveraging some analytics. Why I'm saying that? Because if you start to count the number of events that are generated every single second in an endpoint, you will discover that it's just not possible, too much telemetry. Now, again, the EDR solution is focused on the endpoint. The SIEM solution is focused on multiple type of sources. They are different. The SIEM solution does the job of compliance and logging, storing logs. Okay, the EDR solution does detection of particular attacks that I'm going to show you now in my lab. Okay, like maybe it can help as well to understand a bit more. You still see my screen, Paolo?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So let's say I'm still working around the same attack flow that we saw before, where I can bring to my SIEM, the telemetry from the EDR solution already digested. Okay, where it's telling me, look, on 2 endpoints, we got some detections. Those ones are correlated with the detections of an EPP solution of the anti-malware. So during this attack chain, we saw some well-known malwares, but we saw also some specific tactics that can be considered as suspicious. You see here, defense evasion, okay, and privilege escalation were considered. Now, from here, of course, when I apply a SOAR, when I'm using a SOAR architecture, there are different components that can help me out to orchestrate a situation like this one, including an orchestration tool. And let me go through a couple of dashboards, and I'll show you what type of visibility we will have on the EDR solution. So I will answer also to the question, Paul. Basically, on a SOAR architecture, we will have on the back end an orchestration tool, actually, like this one. Where was this one? Okay, where something happened and has been stored on the SIEM solution related to an EPP incident or an EDR trace, like in this case. I decide to query the host to take the the samples, send it over to a sandbox, start to browse the historical set, and I'm going to show you manually all these steps here, okay? Create a new investigation, run an investigation on EDR, and review the results and try to understand if something if I need to apply additional action, okay?
Sorry, just to clarify for the people who might not know SOAR, this is a playbook, is it?
So this is a playbook on the SOAR, yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And now, because yeah, we jumped too fast, but basically, guys, we were here, okay, before the question. Typical SOAR architecture, what they have, what features have, process automation, playbooks dedicated to incident response flows and case management. Okay, that's what categorizes a SOAR architecture. Okay, like this one. Sorry, just keep it. Now, while we are on our stock leveraging a SOAR architecture, we might want have an incident response platform like the Hive, where specific alerts are coming from EDR as well, because it's not only manage the whole flow on a SIEM solution. Okay, SOC teams, they need really often an incident response platform to manage the complete flow and overall have steps to follow. Like, for example, in this case, in my SIEM, I saw that there were a detection. Okay, the correlation was the detections were correlated between EPP and EDR, and I could see also the tactics leverage in order to trigger that. So I might want to come back to my Hive and see that the playbook went well in the back end, and things have been triggered. For example, in my Hive, I see the detection of WinSCP. So what I might want to do, for example, is to take the case, okay, and leverage a template like process detected by an EDR solution, and from here I will have tasks to follow. Okay, so all things that you might not want to have in your SIEM solution. Okay, so for example, I need to go through the identification phase, the investigation phase, the containment phase, and so on. Okay, in the meantime, remember, the SIEM is always gathering data. Okay, and what else? Well, I may want to leverage my my TIP threat intelligence platform to correlate some intelligence. Okay, you just don't want to send your all threat intelligence to the SIEM. So don't make the mistake of one of my customers that subscribed so many threat feeds, and they send it over all to the SIEM solution, and after asked me for a workshop to understand how to orchestrate and digest all those threat feeds going to the SIEM solution. You might want to use...
It's about quality versus quantity, right?
Exactly, Paolo, exactly. And that's, what SOAR architectures are trying to overcome, and simplify flows. So, for example, in this case, I might... Oh, sorry, guys. Let me just connect quick. So you might want to go deep on a specific threat feed that you received, and even in this case you need to be laser focused. You don't want to subscribe every single threat feed, but only what you need. In this case, the orchestration tool discovered that there was something similar, and actually in the same event, this is an object on the TIP platform. I can see that there is also an additional hash that don't have a lot of information, but I can have to the McAfee insight to enrich my information, where our threat labs can give us more information related to a specific IOC. In this case, I'm discovering we are talking about a Trojan and so on. And this one was part of the attack chain. Okay. Now, of course, like the playbook said, here you need at this stage to take additional actions. And additional actions might force you to visit the EDR console, okay, and do your job as an incident responder. You see WinSCP is here, But thanks to the orchestration tool, I know that even an investigation has been built already for me. Everything automatically. I know that there is an investigation here, and automatically the system uncovered, 12 key findings, and I can see that actually there was a lateral movement as well. And remember, from the attack chain, we saw there was the usage of PSX, and for that, the attacker jumped from one endpoint to another one. Now, the visibility that we have here is not something easy that you can just get out from a SIEM. Okay, why? Because I can tell you, we are talking about an attack that correlates a bunch of telemetry that we can actually see here. Okay, now let me show you so you have an idea about how much telemetry we got. And it's not the all telemetry, it is only the telemetry that counts for me. So to the SIEM solution, I want to only send the fact that we in SCP with this hash, okay, triggered a medium severity alert with the specific techniques observed and the suspicious indicator. After from the SIEM, I can pivot around, maybe leveraging the IP address, okay, or leveraging the hash, and I'll show you how. But again, do you see how many single events have been stored? If you do that with your SIEM, it is not something impossible. You can always gather those information with your custom collector. The problem is that the SIEM will have some challenges to apply analytics on top of that. SIEM can always apply analytics, but better to have already, an interesting number of events that you want to analyze, not just everything. I show you here as well an example from the device search. Actually, I can do it from here. So around the attack, okay, on client 1, 24 hours and 24 hours after, you see the bunch of telemetry that have been stored on the endpoint. You see the number of Windows registries. You see the number of, the number of API calls. Do you store in your SIEM every single API call your endpoint does? And do you do that for every single endpoint? It will be just impossible. Okay, and that's a big difference between a SIEM and an EDR solution. On top of that, remember, you need to split the EDR in two pieces. One piece is responsible for detection, correlating the whole telemetry. The other piece is giving you tools to take action. So, for example, from here, I can just select the endpoint and, focus on a process and kill the process in real time. Okay, if the tool like this one, in this specific case, the McAfee, Envision, EDR/XDR, that are actually really similar, I can even build my custom reaction. Okay, so if there is something that is not done out of the box, I can create one from that. Okay, so you see all the telemetry that has been stored, and this is stored in a way that if the analytics layer detects something, I can easily represent for everyone what happened during the attack. Okay, so imagine now to do that for other security products. Okay, like what might be a web gateway, not only an endpoint, and that's where we evolved to an XDR solution. Okay, you think this in this representation, for example, how easy it is to understand that here we have persistency. Okay, we see a Windows registry. Well, depends. If you are working as a junior SOC analyst, you probably might know that the Windows registry here is for persistency. But an EDR tool can apply analytics to help you out also to discover the persistency really easy, even if you don't have skills, through guided investigation.
Okay. Sorry, Filippo, that's a key difference between a SIEM and an EDR, because SIEM will just mostly look for correlation, the things you're looking for, whereby the investigation portion of EDR will just tell you what you should be worried about, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's a key differentiation between, you know, for a incident response teams looking at SIEM or looking at EDR.
Exactly. On top of, yeah, the bunch
on top of the others that we discussed, of course.
So you see here file reference in auto start entries, how easy it is. So I can discover that from here, and I can send, for example, to my SIEM only what matters. Interesting fact, when we talk about, because now I want to introduce you also a bit of concept of XDR, is the fact that if you select from this graph, let me just remove this zoom in here. So if I'm interested on a specific IP address, like for example, sockets being opened by processes which do not commonly do it. Okay, I can highlight a specific IP address like this one. Now remember what I said, the EDR solution is only focused on the endpoint. Okay, a big difference from EDR and XDR is the same concept but extended to other solutions. Like what I can do here, you see, get events from containing this IP as a destination. So basically I'm starting to expand from an agent on top of the endpoint to a SIEM solution, because I need to know all the history about this IP address, and that history cannot be stored in the EDR solution, because the EDR solution works for single endpoints. Okay, it doesn't know about, you know, it's completely blind for network IPS, next generation firewalls or firewalls in general, web gateways, and so on. So we need to extend to other technologies. Okay, so expect, for example, from an XDR solution, things where even
Sorry, before you go to XDR, I think just to go back to the question, I think, is it fair to say that usually incident responders will start with an EDR and then they use a SIEM as an enrichment tool for the investigation they're carrying on? It
depends, because you can you can start from the SIEM because it might happen that, so there are different use cases. It might happen that EDR discovers something and send it over to the SIEM. Okay, that's one. But you might discover something from the SIEM, so you might want to open an investigation on the on one endpoint that has been involved on the same case
to find out more artifacts and more. Okay.
Because remember, so that the EDR has two pieces, one for detection and one for response. The detection is related to you know, what the engine is able to detect, but it might be possible that you detect something. Look, let's show you a real use case actually here. Okay, not this one where I'm connected. Let me see. I'm not connected to the wrong place. Let me open the dashboard from here. But there are so many use cases, because yes, you can receive your alert from a device control. For example, a pen drive has been plugged in a fixed devices in your environment. So let's say an ATM. So you receive the alert in your SIEM. At this point, what do you want to do? Well, actually, you want to open an investigation from your SIEM, leveraging EDR
for that endpoint.
Yeah, for that endpoint, and maybe the same endpoints in the office or you know, around that. So they actually work together. That's the point, and that
the point is that you need to have both. Really.
Exactly, you need to have both. You need to have both, and even when we go to XDR, you will still need SIEM. Okay, because SIEM, you know, collects really everything. XDR might collect, by definition, to collect from, you know, different sources. But remember, XDR, what Gartner said, is a SaaS security technology that connects multiple sources, but might be possible that it's not able to gather information from a device control that you have on an air-gapped environment. So there are situations where SIEM will be still valid. Overall, for the amount of data the SIEM can store. Okay,
and of course, if
XDR,
you have compliance requirements, then the SIEM is the way to go anyway. So that's the only tool at the moment that can store logs in a raw format for an extended period of time in an easy way. So you can use it for both use cases. So I don't know if the person who submitted the question got enough out of it. If not, just feel free to follow up, and we'll take it from there.
Yes,
So
yes,
you,
absolutely, absolutely. So what I just few notes. Now we still have some minutes left. Yeah, even more than some. Yeah, 25. I'd like also to cover just a few words about XDR. Okay, because now what we have done, we clarified differences between EPP and EDR. We clarified differences between SIEM and EDR, and overall why we still need a SIEM and why SIEM is really important to have it in the architecture. We clarify also concept of the SOAR architecture. Okay, remember, I'll put it again in my screen here. Okay. SOAR are three components. Okay, it's not only an orchestration tool. Don't make confusion between the two. An orchestration tool is part of the SOAR category, yes, but it's not that a SOAR technology is an orchestration tool. It might be even a threat intelligence platform or even a ticketing system. Okay, a ticketing system, of course, to manage stock operations. Now. Let me see. Yes, here. Again, XDR is an evolution of EDR. Okay, we know the capabilities of EDR, so we can imagine when an EDR solution starts to be able to gather information from the web gateway or from a threat intelligence platform or an IPS and so on. Again, so while EDR collects and correlates activities across multiple endpoints, XDR provides detection, response tools, analytics across networks, servers. Cloud workloads is really important. Cloud workloads, okay, so think about Office 365. But also SIEM, and we saw that in example now that, when an EDR solution is able to talk with a SIEM solution, not only to forward logs, but also to enrich data from the SIEM solution, we are starting to talk about XDR. And XDR solution should be provided by default with integration and configured detection mechanism across multiple different products and platforms. I have here an example, of course, from McAfee Enterprise now, where you saw EDR. When EDR start to talk about with components like Envision Insights, so information around APT campaigns, for example. Or McAfee Envision Unified Cloud Edge. Okay, if you're not aware about the Unified Cloud Edge solution, it's basically the CASB solution combined with the SaaS web gateway. Okay, and you can imagine how many telemetry you can detect here only with the user behavior analytics of an Office 365 protection, where I monitor the fact that an end user log on for 6 months in Ireland and decide to log on with the same credentials in Japan and maybe within the same window time of a morning, something really impossible. Okay, this telemetry can be sent over to an XDR solution and can be correlated. Technically, Gartner defined XDR, and I'm going to read this because I always forget one word, is a SaaS-based. Okay, so SaaS-based, so a cloud service, XDR. And that's the first one, the first aspect that Gartner is highlighting. So XDR is a SaaS-based, vendor-specific, so it may be even a unique vendor, actually. Security, threat detection, and incident response tool that natively integrate multiple security products into a cohesive security operation system that unified all licensed components. So when we are talking about, natively connects means that if I need to connect a tape platform, I might want to click a button. So maybe have a look, if you are not a McAfee customer, have a look to the new marketplace that we integrated in our console, where you can go there and just integrate your ARC site just with one click and probably 2 clicks in total, and defining your credentials, and that's it. Okay, so those ones are all requirements that Gartner is highlighting to have an XDR solution, plug and play. Okay, the same way for security vendors, for example, that are not McAfee, we implemented a layer of connection called Envision API. It's basically an API gateway where, using a common standard of API calls, we are able to plug and play security vendors around you see the SOAR architecture, where we still have SIEM solutions. You see, they are not disappearing; they are still there. But also tools like Attivo for on-pod systems and deception and so on. Tip platforms like Threat Quotient, MISP, we saw that, but also orchestration tools. Okay, so you see how basically the SOAR is still there. I built here a really simple example, okay, where I put it in McAfee XDR, receiving data from EDR, receiving data from the threat campaigns from McAfee Insight, data from EPP. You see how many times I put it here, data. Data is really important in this, in the XDR. McAfee use system in data, and McAfee SIEM still there. Receiving logs, okay, like always, but overall, enriching data to XDR. Again, the example that we have done with the IP address during a possible incident. Okay, now, is XDR for everyone? Well, have a look to this slide, okay? We basically categorized organizations in 3 levels of maturity and capability in security operations. On the left side, we basically have customers with, a low budget, few skills, and basically they outsource the security operations with a managed service provider, okay? On the right side here, you see more complex organizations, and that have architecture like similar to the one we saw in the lab, okay, when we had MISP, Hive, and backend orchestration tools that was managing the flows, a SIEM solution. Of course, you always have a SIEM solution, but this time was pivoting around the whole console, the whole processes. And one aspect really interesting of that example, and did it on purpose, was the fact that I was jumping from one console to another one. You can imagine in a mature stock, you will have different operators, okay? You will not have Filippo moving from one stick to another one just to change. You will have different operators, you will have different levels of incident responder, analysts, and so on and so forth. This is the case here, but in the center, okay, in the center, we have organization, and actually are a lot of organization here in the center, where the security operations time is spent, performing manual incident response actions and constantly forced to reactive to those threats which might, be identified by a standalone product and performing many, set of desks moving from one monitor to another one. So those organizations are actually perfect for an XDR solution where the SOAR architecture is basically simplified, still part of the SOAR architecture, okay? Because if you compare SOAR with XDR, we actually will see that they are both trying to overcome the same challenges, okay? So implement security processes through automation and orchestration. In one case, like the one we saw in the lab, there were many manual operations, even though there was an orchestration tool you need anyway to maintain the architecture. In the XDR, things are already implemented for you. So you will see automatic investigations and incidents created for you, automatic enrichment from threat intelligence platforms, and so on. So it's basically a subcategory of still a SOAR architecture, and that's why I wanted to clarify the SOAR concept, not only just an orchestration tool, but more, the combination of incident response platforms, threat intelligence platforms, and orchestration tools. I want to close just 1 minute with another concept that you might find in the market today, and it's called SOAR. Okay, Security Operations Analytics Platform Architecture. This is a concept coming from ESG, okay, Enterprise Strategy Group, and it's something that I love because actually represents what is the perfect SOC today, where while SOAR tools represent a product category, SOAR is an architecture and contains SOAR, but integrates also other layouts like analytics. You see here, automation and orchestration layer. And you see, interesting enough, SIEM is with EDR. They are at the same level. They are considered sensors in this type of architecture. Okay, they are working together to bring data to the analytics layer. Okay, as a software service and integration layer. I don't know if you ever heard about Kafka or McAfee data exchange layer, but years ago, McAfee started to implement technologies that could, integrate inside this SOAR architecture, a common distributed data services, so the telemetry and so on. With that, Paolo, I think I finished the slides. I just want to say thank you very much, everyone, and let's see if there are questions.
Not so fast, Filippo. There are a lot of questions. Right. Okay. I don't know if you see them. Otherwise, you can go through that.
Let me see.
Obviously, the first one we can probably consider it addressed, unless I don't know, unless there is otherwise. Maybe the same person posted a follow-up. Can we send McAfee EDR telemetry to any SIEM? I think the answer is yes, but I'll let you comment on that.
Yes. So McAfee EDR telemetry in terms of detection, yes, but there are other interesting news that I can give you here. Basically, soon they will be on the Envision API, so fully supported and documented also interfaces to aspects of EDR that at the moment are covered only via the community. So the quick answer is yes, and a portion of that is provided by McAfee, another portion is provided by the community. When I say community, I'm saying we have a bunch of scripts on GitHub where you can receive telemetry from EDR via the detection console. And I'm also working on particular projects where we are now able still. This is kind of supported via agreements with professional services and so on, but we are also able to gather the all telemetry from one endpoint to a data lake. I'm saying data lake because I'm sure you don't want to receive the all telemetry that we produce in one endpoint to your SIEM route. You don't want to do that. It's really, really a lot. As today, I believe we have out of the box something like 26 or 27 type of collectors in one endpoint, and each collector registers a lot of telemetry.
Okay,
so you can always follow up on specific.
Of course.
Yeah.
Another question. In the meantime, sorry guys, I posted the QR code if you want to snap it and take the survey. At the end of it, you can also request, if you put your details, a certificate of attendance, because I know some people ask for it and it's easier for CISSP or whatever other certification you want to claim it against. So if you complete the survey, the last question is enter my Your information, if you want to enter information, I'll send you the certificate of attendance in the next few hours. But let's go continue with the question. I'll just mark them as thumbs up so I know that we answered them. In some documents, enrichment is one part of SOAR capabilities. Why in your architecture enrichment is completely individual from SOAR? Any take?
Which architecture? Which architecture? So there was, but wait, this architecture, let me see. There was an example. So this one, okay.
Feel free to share it and I will share
Let me share.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we are talking about this architecture, right?
I guess we cannot reply.
Yeah,
let's assume
this one
so.
is just, yeah, you know, this one was just an example of the lab that we implemented. And yes, the question was thanks for the question actually, but yes, this is just a use case. I also highlighted here example for endpoint architecture in the lab, but we can actually do enrichment of data from different point of view, of course. And SOAR, if you even see a classic playbook out of the box with Swim Lane or Palo Alto SOAR or the others, you will see that yes, even out of the box there are playbooks that do enrichment from different sources, like what might be VirusTotal and so on. But again, this one was a really quick example that I want to show, a use case.
Very good. Let me come back to my slide just in case people didn't have time. So let's move on. Question: who's responsible for alert normalization and correlation, and how is this automated? Alice asking.
Where on EDR or on XDR? Well, so who is responsible for correlation automation, right?
Who is responsible for alert normalization? I think it depends. What do you mean by alert? If it's log correlation and normalization, or alert, there are two different things. So alert for log normalization and correlation is definitely a SIEM. For alert, I guess it's kind of analytics we're looking at then. So correlating events coming in. And it probably for XDR, EDR is the same thing. So if you're talking about alerts correlations, it's probably an XDR or an EDR system. But if you're talking about logs, normalization, correlation, because the normalization kind of gives it away, that's probably talking about logs. So normalization and correlation is something that a SIEM usually does, not an EDR. Yeah. I don't know if you want to comment, but this is kind of my take on the question.
Yeah, no, it can take a lot, but I mean, we can do it even in different layers. I mean, that doesn't mean, but when we talk about normalization, of course, that's done on the SIEM solution. So there is a little difference between EDR and XDR in the market. Sometimes you can see that some EDR technologies don't do a deep correlation. XDR, yes. Okay.
Can you explain the difference?
Because of course, by definition, XDR takes events from different sources. Okay, so you might want to correlate, for example, an event on Office 365 with an event on the endpoint with EDR. Okay, the correlation that an EDR solution does in general is really limited to the trace that it has. Okay, so it correlates that Windows registry key has been created by a process that changed reputation during the flow.
Makes sense. Last question, and I think we're probably right on time for that. Which type of investigation XOR sent to EDR? Is XOR the solution, the Palo Alto network solution you're talking about? Let's hope so. The question is, which type of investigation is sent from Palo Alto to EDR?
So in this use case, but also more in general, the McAfee Envision EDR solution, that is the one that I had today, basically on top of a possible threat, okay, when we store the telemetry and we get something out of it saying, okay, we have a medium, high, or low severity alert, we can open manually an investigation, okay, but an operator needs to do that. And in this case, the orchestration tool, the Palo Alto SOAR, did it for me, okay, after the alert was generated and some correlation were done. Now, what an investigation is, or probably who made the question already knows, but basically, we apply expert machines on top of a baseline of what might be the operative system in the environment, a Windows server, I believe in this specific case, and we try to find anomalies. Okay, so you don't do that for every single endpoint. You do that in a second stage when you declare that an incident after an identification, declare the incident. So you might want to do some scoping of some investigation on top of the same endpoint. Now, if you have an operator that can do that, that's good. But with in this lab, basically, SOAR was taking some decisions after the alert was sent over to the Splunk and decided to open automatically an investigation.
We have more questions coming in, Filippo, and it's probably difficult to answer them all. A follow-up, let's go to the follow-up first of all. So when the person, Puyan, is asking, is it possible to send McAfee DR telemetry to SIEM like Splunk? It means the pure telemetry, not the alert, so the raw data. Is it possible to send the raw data? Again, you already answered the question.
Yes,
it probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
We did it as a proof of concept, so the product is not released out of the box with this feature, but on the specific request, I'm really happy to drive the proof of concept and see if we can, if we can realize what who's making the question is looking for. But yeah, we have different proof of concept for that.
Right, more questions. We still have 5 minutes, so we can go through until midday. It's interesting to see that there is a topic that seems to be generating some buzz, and that's good to see. So the certification, I already posted that, so that's okay. Are we lacking human security awareness training since us humans are the weakest link in security today? Shouldn't that part of the detection and response? How do you make that? Yeah, I actually saw a couple of interesting, I think prevention is the cure in this case. I saw a vendor, something called Red Flags. It was a UK-based vendor some time ago, which I think did a great job in alerting users before they did something silly, and in the actual office products. And I think prevention is really what we should be, prevention and training is really what address that. I don't think tools will ever be able to address human stupidity much, or, stupidity or otherwise. So I guess that's my take on that answer. Philip, if you want to add anything on that, I'll go through the other questions in the meantime.
No. Yes,
That's an interesting one here. Could in the end XDR replace a fully ADR paired with a SIEM?
Oh, can you repeat again?
Could an ADR solution in the future replace EDR plus SIEM?
No. So
the compliance part of it will always be SIEM.
Yeah, obviously. No, but overall the data that you store over there. I don't know if in the future there will be a new name to identify something that unifies SIEM and XDR. But at the moment, we still have both solutions. Yes, XDR plus SIEM. Also, because again, there will be challenges to send over to an XDR every single component of your environment.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about things like a door open or close in a server part or things like that. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not an analyst.
Thanks for the comment, Filippo. Another two, and I think there are a few more coming, but I don't think we have time for. I just wanted to close on the dot. So one question, other two questions, the last two for today. Where can I get sample logs that I want to use to integrate with my SIEM? Is there something that you can comment on?
Yeah. So, but logs from what? From
I assume EDR.
Envision EDR.
I say so.
Yeah, that's not a problem. So we are talking about the JSON that basically is reproduced by the Envision EDR solution, right?
Yeah, so sample logs, like probably to test it. Is there something in GitHub
Yeah.
that?
Yes, we can always follow up with that. I don't have the link now, but funny enough, yesterday
We can
night
post
we
a
were
link
working.
at LinkedIn event, maybe the answer to some of these questions with some comments later on, in order of to keep time, the time. Last one for today.
Just
for
one thing, so it is, you know. So I mean, I don't know if who made the question is using that the official McAfee script or something coming from the community, but we can get out of it a JSON file. Now, the question might be different. The question might be related to the fact that, differently from the logs from the Envision EPO, there are no specified fields. I don't know, but in any case, Paolo, they can reach out to me, and I mean, if as a McAfee customer, it will not be impossible to find me anyway. I'm there.
Okay, fair enough. So leave it for later. For the provider supporting services on either Azure or AWS, and I think we do support some technology in both. How easy is for us to plug in an XDR or a SOAR solution? Let's talk about XDR. I guess as long as you can reach it by the network,
Well,
if you have some sort of
no, but overall, when we start to talk about XDR, even the role of an orchestration tool start to lose importance, you know, because the XDR tool start to do some stuff that orchestration tool does.
So it's a choice, either you have XDR or SOAR.
Well, there will be maybe an hybrid, but I see many playbooks reducing in terms of numbers if you apply XDR. But I can tell you that mature customers leveraging an orchestration tool are not looking at a full XDR solution, but a combination of VDR and other tools. Okay.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. It's 12 on the dot, and I like to kind of pride myself to finish in time. Thanks for all the questions and all the interesting comments. There are a few others not answered. We try to kind of review them together and maybe post some comments in the LinkedIn events in the next few hours. And I'll feel free to fill in the survey if you haven't done it, and put your details there if you want a certificate of attendance. I don't have the details for everybody because we didn't register. So if you don't tell me where to send the certificate and who you are, I won't be able to send it to you. And that's it. Thanks very much, and looking forward. Thanks, Filippo, for your time and energy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone.
And well, I guess until the next time. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Have a great day.